In the fall of 1906, the Hollowell family moved deep into the Ozark borderlands of Missouri, claiming land through a government homesteading grant. It was meant to be a fresh start, a quiet life on untouched soil. But just a few weeks in, they mailed a letter to a cousin in St. Louis that no one can explain to this day. They claimed they'd found an abandoned town hidden in the woods, homes intact, fires still warm, meals untouched, and clocks still ticking. But not a single soul in sight. In the letter, they mentioned something buried beneath the old church in the center of town. Something that wasn't wood or stone. Something alive. Days later, the entire Hollowell family vanished. No bodies, no blood, no signs of escape or struggle. Just removed. And the town they claimed to find? It doesn't exist on any map. Not before, not after. Some places vanish from maps, others vanish from memory. But the worst kind, they wait. The Hollowell family wasn't looking for trouble. In October of 1906, George and Lillian Hollowell packed up their wagon and took their 3 children, David, Clara, and little Amos, into the southern Missouri hills. The land was rough, unclaimed, and quiet. That's what they wanted. Silence. Space. A chance to build something of their own, far from the choking noise of St. Louis. They made it as far as Belliver Ridge, a place so deep in the Ozarks, even the postmaster called it the end of the road. But the Hollowells didn't stop there. They kept pushing deeper. Locals said they were stubborn, said they were warned, because beyond Belliver, there's nothing but trees. Trees and the bones of old things. 3 weeks after they vanished, a letter arrived in St. Louis addressed to Lillian's cousin. The handwriting was shaky, like someone trying to write through fear. In it, she described a strange town they'd come across while exploring the woods near their new homestead. No name on the welcome sign, no people. But the houses were warm. Beds made, lamps lit, bread still rising in the pans. Even the rocking chairs were moving. The kids thought it was magic. George thought maybe they'd stumbled on a religious commune gone quiet. But Lillian knew something was wrong. She said the shadows didn't move right, that the deeper they walked into the town, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no wind, just pressure. Like something watching. She wrote, "There's a church at the center. The doors won't open, but Amos says he can hear something humming from beneath it. I don't think this town is abandoned. I think it's asleep." That was the last anyone ever heard from them. When search parties finally went out, the Hollowells' homestead was empty. Food half-cooked, beds untouched, their horses still tied up. No tracks, no signs of where they'd gone. But the most disturbing thing? There was no town, no buildings, no church. Just forest. But here's what one of the searchers said, before he left Missouri and never came back. There were footprints in the moss, children's, leading into nowhere. Welcome to the story that was never meant to be told. You're not watching this by accident. Something brought you here. And the deeper we go, the louder it gets. They say the Hollowells sent only one letter. But that's not true. In 1971, a construction crew clearing ground for a new highway near Belliver Ridge unearthed a rusted, sealed ammunition box buried beneath layers of shale. Inside, they found water-damaged documents, old photographs, and a second letter, dated 5 days after the family supposedly disappeared, written in the same hand, Lillian's. But something was off. The strokes were jagged, panicked, as if her fingers were trembling. But the worst part? The letter was never mailed. It was buried. She wrote, "We opened the church. I begged George not to. It wasn't a door. It was a seal. There were stairs that shouldn't have fit beneath that small building. They went down farther than any mine I've ever seen. There was singing. Low, slow, coming from the stone." She said the town changed after that. The buildings began to rot in reverse, timbers smoothing, iron hinges becoming polished and new. But no people. Just whispers behind the walls, faces in the windows, not moving, not breathing, watching. And then the dreams started. Each family member began seeing different versions of the same nightmare. George saw his grandfather burning a field under a sky with no sun. Clara drew pictures of a spiral town folding into itself, and Amos, the youngest, whispered to someone only he could see, a woman with black eyes and no mouth. He called her the church mother. Lillian wrote, "She said we were invited, that the town chose us, that every 100 years someone has to stay, so it can rest again." The letter ends mid-sentence. No goodbye, no signature, just a smudge, like someone tried to stop her from finishing. To this day, no historian can explain how that letter was written after the family disappeared. No records show mail service in that part of the state at the time. And the photographs? Blurred, melting at the edges, like the buildings in them didn't want to be seen. But one photo is clear. It's the boy, Amos, standing in front of the old church. But his shadow doesn't match him. It's taller, wider, and where its mouth should be is only a hole. If you think this is just legend, ask yourself, why does the Missouri State Archive list Belliver as a historical echo? Why does no GPS hold signal past marker 131? And why does the air feel wrong when you say the town's name out loud? Because this story, it isn't about what the Hollowells found. It's about what found them. Some men chase truth like a drug. They don't care what it costs, only that it cuts deeper than the last dose. In 1996, a private surveyor named Nolan Griggs heard whispers of the Hollowell case while working on a soil report in southern Missouri. He was ex-military, smart, obsessed with historical anomalies. And he had one flaw. He believed nothing should stay hidden. He tracked down Lillian Hollowell's letters, bribed a retired archivist to see the sealed photographs, and found the name Belliver Ridge etched into a Civil War map, then crossed out in red ink. That map was 30 years older than the town the Hollowells claimed to find, which meant one thing. Belliver had existed before, and someone had already tried to erase it. Griggs packed a tent, a compass, and a 1953 Geiger counter. He wasn't a ghost hunter. He was a man of data. But even data can be broken. He reached the edge of the ridge in 2 days. His notes, recovered later from a waterproof case, are disturbingly clinical. He writes, "The birds stop singing precisely 1.3 miles in. The soil turns soft, not muddy, but spongy, like walking on old carpet. Trees arranged in perfect octagons, not natural. Heard a low tone at 3:41 a.m. Vibrations inside the chest cavity. Resonant. Felt like it was calling something up or down." By day 4, his writing shifts. "I saw the town, same as the photo. Empty, but clean. Lights on. No wires. I followed the sound to the church. Doors swung open on their own. Inside, the altar had no cross. Only a hole cut into the floor. It smelled like iron and old breath. But what Griggs wrote on the back of his final page, that's what's never left my mind. It's not a town. It's a pattern, a thought. You don't walk into it. It walks into you. It sees through your eyes, and now it knows me. Griggs never came back. His tent was found torn open, but not from outside. The fabric was shredded outward, as if he'd tried to escape something within. His compass? Spinning. His Geiger counter? Screaming. They say his voice still comes through on the old frequency his radio used. Not words, just humming. And every so often, someone passing through the area reports seeing a boy standing at the tree line, wearing turn-of-the-century clothes, holding something in his hand. A compass, still spinning. This isn't folklore. It's a fracture. A wound in the world that bleeds memory instead of blood. And now you've seen the edges of it. But we're not done. There's something buried beneath that church, and what it wants is about to wake up. Most churches are built to worship. This one was built to bury. In 1902, 4 years before the Hollowells vanished, a preacher named Elijah Dane led a group of settlers into the Belliver Woods. His sermons weren't recorded. His church wasn't listed in any diocese, but fragments of his writings were found decades later, hidden inside the binding of a burned hymnal retrieved from a collapsed cellar near Belliver Ridge. One page, torn, scorched, but legible. He wrote, "The soil pulses here, as if the world beneath this hill is not dead, but dreaming. We built the church to cover the wound, to press down the breath of it with holy wood and whispered hymns, but even now we hear it in the night, feeding." This was never a place of worship. It was a lid, a seal, a way to contain what he called the returning pattern. Not a demon, not a spirit. A memory that thinks, that waits for eyes to open. And when the Hollowell family opened the doors, they didn't just let something out. They invited it in. Here's the detail no one talks about. There are no photographs of Elijah Dane, not one. But there are drawings, crudely done, all identical, found across 5 counties. Same face, same black coat, same eyes with no pupils. The final report filed by the Missouri Historical Society before their investigation was shut down described one of these drawings in detail. Behind the preacher stood a group of townspeople, mouths sewn shut, eyes bleeding black, each with a hand resting on a child's head. And underneath, a single phrase in block lettering. "We are the offering. Let the pattern rest." Now think, why did the Hollowells find a fully furnished town abandoned in silence? Why was the food warm, the beds made, the clocks still ticking? Because it was ready. Ready for the next offering. Ready for a family. And this is what chills the blood. It wasn't just the Hollowells. Every 100 years, the census data shows a similar pattern. Families that vanish from remote regions of Missouri, Arkansas, even deep Tennessee, always with children, always near old churches that shouldn't be there, always preceded by hum. There are men in Washington who know this, who've mapped these pulses, who've marked these zones as unbuildable, not because of floods or fault lines, but because the land remembers too much. And now that you know, it may remember you too. Let me say this clearly. What happened to the Hollowells wasn't an accident. It was a correction. You see, patterns don't care about people. They don't care about love, families, or futures. Patterns exist to continue themselves. And if you step into one, even unknowingly, you become part of the repetition. A line in the sequence. A thread in a knot that's been tightening for centuries. That's what the Hollowells walked into. Not a haunted town. A repeating event. An echo with teeth. In 2004, a researcher named Colby Ames, former intelligence analyst turned folklorist, tried to connect the Hollowell case to older incidents from pre-colonial times. Native oral traditions spoke of a hollow place in the earth where time forgets itself. A forbidden site known only as Ganatahe. Roughly translated, the mouth that remembers. Colby followed the trail, mapped strange disappearances, linked census voids, regional electromagnetic surges, even seismic anomalies in unrecorded areas. He even found 3 towns with identical layouts to Belliver, all erased from maps before 1910. When he overlaid them, the same spiral appeared. Perfect, measured, mathematical. He believed it was a kind of sentient geography, a looped location that wakes, feeds, sleeps, and resets. Over and over. And the town is just its mask, its welcome mat, like bait dressed up as salvation. But Colby made one mistake. He tried to go back. In an unpublished voicemail recovered from his cloud storage after he went missing, he said, "I finally understand. It's not a location. It's a function, a system of erasure. If it sees that you've recognized it, if your mind catches on, it removes you to preserve itself." He chokes on his breath near the end of the message. You can hear him whisper, "The boy's at my door now. He's holding my shadow." Colby Ames hasn't been seen since. And the coordinates he last searched? Belliver Ridge. Now you may think you're safe, watching from a distance, behind a screen. But if this is a thinking memory, the pattern feels you noticing it, then the moment you saw that shadow in Amos Hollowell's photograph, you joined the sequence. You stepped into it. And the pattern does not forget its own. Before we go to the final section, let this settle in your mind like a seed. How many people do you know who disappeared quietly from your life without explanation and were never spoken of again? The pattern always begins small, then it starts over with someone new. So here we are, at the end, or maybe the beginning again, because that's how the pattern works. It loops, it consumes, and it leaves no trace but silence. 3 months ago, an anonymous package was mailed to a small library in Jefferson City, Missouri. No return address, no note. Just a bundle of photos, a strip of undeveloped film, and a black book bound in cloth. It had no title, but inside were names, names of families, scrawled in different inks, different handwriting, different decades. Every name was crossed out. Until the last page. One name remained, written in red, Hollowell. But next to it, a space. Blank. As if the pattern is still waiting. Not for them. For whoever watches long enough to understand what they saw. You. There are no jump scares in this story. No demons, no monsters in closets, just something old, cold, and exact. A system. A memory looped so many times that it became hungry for witnesses. The pattern needs to be seen to spread. That's the cost of knowledge. And now, you're part of it. and the pattern is watching to see what you'll do next. So I ask you, one last time, if you're still here, if your heart is pounding a little harder, your skin cold under the light of the screen, prove you're not just another thread in the loop. Type the phrase below twice in the comments. I see the pattern. I do not blink. Twice, not once. Because that's how you resist it. That's how you signal that you're awake. And don't think clicking away will save you. Because the pattern doesn't need your attention. It just needs your recognition. One glance was enough. One whisper in the dark. One thought that wasn't yours. And now you know what happened to the Hollowell family. Not because someone told you, but because now you remember too. So sleep carefully tonight. Keep a light on in the hall. And if you hear the humming, don't open the door. It's just the boy, bringing your shadow home.